Alright, so Ace versus Whitebeard, and people have been asking me what are my thoughts on what's actually canon. It's really simple. The Ace novel is canon. It was supervised by Oda, he checked it over, and it was approved. Very similar to how the early Viva cards were. Him and his editors would look over things, make sure that they're accurate. He's less involved with the Viva cards today, but people still consider them mostly canon. In both the Ace novel and the Viva cards, if anything contradicts the manga will take precedent. That is canon. The thing that's not canon is the Ace novel manga that was adapted by Boichi. Now, the reason it's not canon is because it directly contradicts what happens in the novels. They cannot both be canon. They have direct contradicting events. Some that are more menial than others, but the big one is the final fight between Whitebeard and Ace. And this is the catalyst causing a lot of people to overrate Ace as of late. It really stems from like these panels right here, where you see that like Ace was like clashing with Whitebeard, his Basento. Even in this manga, he knocks the Basento out of his hand, overpowered him briefly. People think that this is Advanced Conquerors plus the Gura. Like there's crazy things people are talking about now. It even goes so far as to imply that Ace may even have future sight at the time. It looks like he sees a future and he like dodges out of the way. All these different things that just simply don't exist. In the actual Ace novel, the final fight is very, very different. As a lot of you guys know, and maybe some of you don't, Whitebeard and Ace fought 100 times. The final fight, the 100th fight, is what's in question. Namely, in this manga, this final 100th fight takes place on this giant island where Whitebeard and Ace like let loose completely. We know with 100% certainty that the 100th fight took place on the Moby Dick, confirmed in the manga. That is corroborated in the Ace novel. The Ace novel follows that same trajectory as the 100th fight takes place on the Moby Dick. Now, as the Ace novel tells you, it's very, very brief. A fireball of a man flew off the Moby Dick into the sea once again. When he fell into the water, his fire was extinguished. Was that the 100th time? I think so. The division leaders, released from the tension of the duel, finally let their thoughts out as words. There was a cracking, singed smell floating about the deck. The duel between Porcus D. Ace and Edward Whitebeard Newgate had come to a definitive end at last. Whitebeard had unleashed a small portion of the power of his tremor fruit, an ability capable of destroying the world itself. He looked down at the palm of his hand and said, "The young doc's gonna scold me, I got burned in the same spot again," and glanced at the surface of the water. Thatch sensed his captain's meaning and ordered someone pull him out, talking about Ace. Wallace the fishman immediately jumped into the water and scooped up the unconscious Ace before he could sink any farther down. When Wallace popped back out of the water, he saw a blue flame. It was the bird of fire with wings outstretched. Commander Marco of the 1st Division possessed the powers of a mythical type zone fruit. He could turn into the phoenix, signified by his epithet. Ace tried 100 times and failed 100 times. In the end, he could use his fiery fist to apply pressure to Whitebeard, but not reach the top. It brought him back onto the deck, sat him with his back against the side of the gunwale. It was the same way that he'd woken up on the Moby Dick for the first time. He hadn't expected a miracle to occur on his 100th attempt. To Ace, this contest was no longer about winning or losing. The desire to take Whitebeard out had already left Ace's heart. Even before they fought, didn't mean that he admitted he lost. The great man who was Whitebeard should never have been the target for Ace in the first place. It just took him 100 losses before he finally admitted that to himself. It was a pointless fight. Young people often struggle with pointless pursuits until they realize for themselves that they are pointless. And that, in fact, is the point. That is literally the full conclusion of the fight. As you can see, it took place on Whitebeard's ship on the Moby Dick. It did not take place on a random island that they had reserved or scoped out for this amazing clash. It was a quick encounter where Whitebeard for the first time unleashed his tremor fruit. Again, they highlight a small portion of the tremor fruit, which finished off Ace, because to that point, Ace was trying to get him to use the fruit. So Ace did achieve something in getting Whitebeard to use the fruit. That's why they said he could apply pressure. Also, you have to understand the context of this as well, that, you know, Whitebeard is kind of trying to take this kid on as a son. He likes him as a person. He's obviously Roger's kid. So it's like learning and teaching moments for Whitebeard as well. So there's nothing you can really take out of this other than like Whitebeard just low diffed him with a small portion of the girl. Also notice how the dialogue here is like a 1-to-1 with what Marco says to Ace after he loses the 100th fight, from the manga panel to the Ace novel. The novel basically tried to adapt that small flashback into the novelization, and it directly stayed in line with the canon. It's actually more similar to the 99th fight in the Boichi adaptation, where he adds a completely extra fight and made this one the 99. In that, basically, you see Whitebeard hits him with the Gura, Ace goes flying into a rock, but in this, he actually remains conscious. He says, "I finally got you to use it," and then he passes out. So it still makes him look better. And also just look at, this is what the girl looks like even in that encounter. That's just how Boichi draws the girl. Even if that was to be canon, which obviously it isn't, that would not be advanced conquers. It's just the way he was drawing the girl in the tremor fruit. That's essentially what took place. Ace got destroyed, and then he conceded to Whitebeard after the 100th defeat. He doesn't scale to a full power Whitebeard, didn't knock his placento out of his hand, didn't clash evenly with him. He burned his hand twice. Minimal damage at most. It constitutes a low diff, and this is like a Whitebeard that probably doesn't have any conviction to actually fight him. So I hope this helps. Also, this was just the thing that was of most prominence. This was the biggest change in like what people use to scale, but Ace doesn't even have conscious knowledge of how to use armament haki. He does use armament haki in the actual novel once against Vice Admiral Draw, but he did not know what he was doing when he did it, and it just happened in the spur of the moment. So maybe you could say like, hey, if he gets into a heated fight, perhaps it could have awakened again. Maybe he did use it a couple times against Whitebeard, who knows, but it's never mentioned. Like, it's never once mentioned, never even alluded to that he can consciously use it. Now his Viver card only confirms he has Conqueror's Haki, doesn't ever confirm he has armament or observation, so it never even gets confirmed if he ever got conscious usage of it. I would say that he probably does have the basics of these. I think we can all assume that. I'm just pointing out the fact that it's actually never been confirmed. But yeah, don't let anybody fool you, don't let anybody upscale the shit out of Ace. Shit's not canon. Also, one last quick add-on, just for anybody that thinks anything about Odin versus Ace potentially. Whitebeard, after seeing Ace after all these 100 fights and years passing, doesn't think that Ace is anywhere near Odin, doesn't have any chance when Ace wants to go fight Kaido because Odin didn't beat this guy. Whitebeard, with full knowledge of Ace and Odin, believes that Odin is far superior, and that's that. There's also a ton of other changes that are in the novels. So I recommend, if you want to know, go read it for yourself, but that'll do it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.